Thousands of fractured bones pulled from the asphalt of the La Brea tar pits reveal a biological impossibility. The predator had suffered a broken neck and shattered legs, yet instead of collapsing, it healed and charged back into battle to finish the kill. This is not a monster from a horror movie. This is the raw truth of the dire wolf, the Wolverine of the Ice Age. Their fossils tell a chilling story of resilience where death was denied and pain was simply ignored. But hidden behind this biological tank was a genetic tragedy even more terrifying. They were the final representatives of a ghost lineage isolated for 5.7 million years, creatures forced to burn through their own childhoods just to survive in a world where delay meant death. In the brutal logic of the wild, a broken bone is usually a death sentence, leading to starvation or infection within days. Yet deep within the asphalt of La Brea, we find evidence of a creature that treated a broken neck or a shattered leg as a mere inconvenience to be ignored while continuing to hunt. What kind of predator could survive catastrophic injuries and continue hunting for weeks? The answer lies buried deep within the La Brea tar pits, where thousands of dire wolf fossils tell a story of resilience that defies modern understanding. These ancient asphalt deposits have preserved an extraordinary record of severe injuries that should have been instantly fatal, yet somehow weren't. Modern grey wolves rarely survive serious bone fractures. A broken leg typically means death within days, as infection sets in or the wolf becomes easy prey for competitors. Yet dire wolf specimens from La Brea reveal a different reality entirely. Paleontologists have documented countless fossils showing healed fractures in necks, spines, and limbs, while clear evidence proves these wolves remained active hunters throughout their recovery periods. The fossil record provides remarkable examples of this toughness. Individual specimens show compound fractures in major limb bones that completely severed the bone. The fracture sites display extensive callus formation, indicating the wolves survived for months while bones slowly knitted back together. More striking still, their teeth continued accumulating wear patterns during these healing periods. The dental evidence proves these dire wolves kept feeding, kept hunting, and kept living despite carrying devastating injuries. Other specimens reveal even more extreme cases of survival. Some fossils show clear evidence of vertebrae fractures that partially damaged the spinal column. In any modern carnivore, such injuries would cause immediate paralysis and death. Yet these dire wolf bones show complete healing with new bone growth bridging the fracture sites. The animals lived for months after these injuries occurred. The tooth fracture evidence from La Brea reveals the brutal nature of their existence. Between 5 and 17% of dire wolf teeth show fracture damage, compared to just 0.5 to 2.7% for modern predators. This indicates they consumed bone more frequently than any living carnivore, crushing through massive bones with bite forces measuring 163 newtons per kilogram of body weight. This exceeded any known Canis species, making them biological bone crushers built for punishment. Some fossils document injuries that would instantly disable any living carnivore today. Individual specimens show evidence of surviving multiple major bone fractures simultaneously, with all injuries displaying clear signs of healing and new bone formation, indicating survival for months after sustaining devastating trauma. The evolutionary pressures that created such extreme durability become clear when considering their lifestyle. Dire wolves hunted in coordinated packs against massive prey like giant ground sloths, saber-toothed cats, and cave bears. These confrontations involved brutal close-quarters combat where serious injuries were routine rather than exceptional. Surviving meant enduring bone-crushing impacts from megafauna desperate to escape. This extraordinary toughness became their defining characteristic, separating them from every other predator of their time. Yet beneath this remarkable physical resilience lay a hidden vulnerability that no amount of bone strength could protect against. For thousands of years, dire wolves and grey wolves shared the same hunting grounds, the same prey, and the same dens without ever producing a single hybrid offspring. They stood shoulder to shoulder in the physical world, yet remained biological strangers separated by an invisible barrier that DNA analysis has only just revealed. How does an entire species become genetically invisible for nearly 6 million years? The answer emerged from a groundbreaking 2021 genomic analysis that fundamentally rewrote dire wolf evolutionary history. Scientists extracted DNA from 5 dire wolf fossils spanning 50,000 to 13,000 years ago and discovered something extraordinary. These predators belonged to a completely separate evolutionary branch that had split from all other canids 5.7 million years ago, long before humans ever walked the earth. The genetic evidence revealed a startling truth about dire wolf isolation. Despite living alongside grey wolves and coyotes for thousands of years across identical territories, dire wolves never interbred with them, not even once. This reproductive barrier persisted even when these species hunted the same prey, occupied the same dens, and faced identical environmental pressures. The DNA analysis found zero trace of genetic exchange between dire wolves and any member of the Canis genus. While dire wolves evolved in complete isolation within the Americas, their distant cousins spread across Eurasia and Africa, developing into the diverse canid species we recognize today. The genetic data showed that dire wolves were actually more closely related to African jackals than to the North American grey wolves they lived beside. This relationship demonstrates just how far the dire wolf lineage had drifted from the main canid evolutionary tree. The isolation allowed dire wolves to develop their unique adaptations without outside genetic influence. Their massive bone-crushing jaws, reinforced skeletons, and extreme durability all evolved within this closed genetic system. However, this same isolation cut them off from beneficial genetic exchanges that could have provided survival advantages. Modern genetic analysis shows how grey wolves and coyotes readily hybridize when environmental pressures mount, sharing adaptive genes that help both species survive challenging conditions. The reproductive isolation between dire wolves and other canids remained a biological mystery. Even when territories overlapped completely, these species maintained strict genetic boundaries. The chromosomal differences had become so pronounced over millions of years that successful interbreeding was no longer possible. The dire wolf genome had become incompatible with its closest living relatives. This discovery led scientists to reclassify dire wolves from Canis dirus to Aenocyon dirus, acknowledging their distinct evolutionary path. The name Aenocyon, meaning terrible dog, was originally proposed in 1918 by paleontologist John Merriam, but largely ignored until genetic evidence proved its accuracy. Dire wolves represented the final survivors of an ancient ghost lineage that had persisted in evolutionary isolation for nearly 6 million years. The genetic loneliness of dire wolves created a hidden vulnerability that no amount of physical toughness could overcome. While their isolated evolution had produced remarkable adaptations for hunting megafauna, it also trapped them in a genetic dead end. When rapid environmental changes began reshaping their world at the end of the Pleistocene, dire wolves lacked the genetic flexibility that had allowed other canids to adapt and survive. Their evolutionary independence demanded other survival strategies that pushed their biology to extraordinary limits. Modern wolf pups enjoy a leisurely childhood of play fighting and social learning that lasts nearly 2 years before they face the harsh realities of the hunt. But fossil analysis reveals that dire wolf pups were denied this luxury, undergoing an explosive physical transformation that turned fragile newborns into heavyweight fighters almost overnight. What forces a young predator to abandon childhood and become a killer in record time? The dire wolf survival strategy demanded immediate readiness for combat in a world where delay meant death. This biological imperative represented one of the most extreme developmental pressures ever documented in a mammalian predator. Modern wolves follow a leisurely maturation schedule, taking nearly 2 full years to reach adult size and hunting competency. Grey wolf pups spend their first year learning social dynamics, play fighting with littermates, and gradually developing the coordination needed for pack hunts. Dire wolves operated under completely different rules. These ancient predators faced developmental pressures that compressed their growth into a frantic race against time. The fossil record reveals the stunning physical adaptations that emerge from this pressure. Dire wolves achieved their massive adult proportions through accelerated bone development that produced skulls reaching 310 millimeters in length, with broader palates and more robust zygomatic arches than any modern wolf. Their sagittal crests rose higher, and their inions showed significant backward projection, creating skulls that were truly massive compared to their contemporaries. This robust build, with adults weighing between 60 and 68 kilograms, and some specimens potentially exceeding 110 kilograms, made them comparable to the largest modern wolves while maintaining the power to crush bone with devastating bite forces. The metabolic cost of supporting such massive frames was enormous. Dire wolves required constant caloric intake to fuel their powerful bodies, consuming protein at rates that would stress most ecosystems. This energy demand shaped their entire life strategy, forcing packs to maintain relentless hunting pressure on megafauna populations. Every day required successful kills, creating a biological imperative that drove their aggressive pack hunting tactics. This developmental pressure was essential for survival in a world where becoming prey was always one mistake away. Young dire wolves faced immediate threats from saber-toothed cats, short-faced bears, and other apex predators that dominated the same hunting grounds. The Pleistocene landscape offered no safe spaces for extended childhood development. Predator juveniles that couldn't defend themselves quickly became meals for competitors. Modern large carnivores demonstrate the luxury of extended development. Lions take 3 years to reach hunting proficiency. Bears require 4 to 5 years for full maturation, and tigers need nearly 3 years to become effective predators. These species evolved in environments where extended parental protection was possible. Dire wolves enjoyed no such evolutionary luxury. Evolutionary pressures from competing with saber-toothed cats and short-faced bears demanded this instant readiness. These formidable predators targeted similar prey species across identical territories. Any carnivore that couldn't reach combat effectiveness quickly found itself eliminated from the ecosystem. Dire wolves responded by developing the physical tools necessary for immediate dominance, trading developmental time for raw power. This strategy produced predators capable of thriving across vastly different environments, from frozen northern forests to scorching southern deserts. Nature usually demands a trade-off. Polar bears rule the ice but fail in the heat, while jaguars own the jungle but perish in the snow. The dire wolf refused to choose, leaving its bones in both the frozen permafrost of Canada and the oxygen-starved heights of the Bolivian Andes. How did one species dominate environments separated by 4,000 miles and completely different climates? Dire wolf fossils span from the frozen forests of Alberta to the tropical highlands of Bolivia, covering more territory than any large predator before or since. This geographic range represents an ecological achievement that defies the normal rules of carnivore specialization. Most large carnivores evolve within narrow ecological niches that define their entire existence. Polar bears thrive in Arctic conditions but struggle in temperate climates. Jaguars dominate tropical rainforests but cannot survive in desert environments. Yet, dire wolves shattered these biological limitations, thriving simultaneously in Arctic tundra, temperate forests, arid deserts, and high-altitude tropical mountains. Fossil evidence from Canadian permafrost reveals dire wolves hunting caribou and musk oxen in sub-zero conditions, where temperatures regularly dropped below -30 degrees Fahrenheit. These northern populations developed thick winter coats and robust metabolisms that allowed them to pursue megafauna across frozen landscapes. The bone chemistry from these specimens shows clear dietary signatures of Arctic prey species. Mexican cave systems tell a completely different story of dire wolf adaptation. Remains from Nuevo Leon and Coahuila provinces reveal dire wolves taking down giant ground sloths in desert environments where water was scarce and temperatures soared above 100 degrees. These populations hunted Harlan's ground sloths and flat-headed peccaries across landscapes that would challenge any modern carnivore. Bolivian highland discoveries push dire wolf adaptability to extreme limits. Fossils recovered at altitudes exceeding 12,000 feet demonstrate these predators successfully hunting in oxygen-thin environments that modern wolves cannot tolerate. The bone density measurements from these high-altitude specimens show adaptations for increased oxygen efficiency and cold resistance. Modern grey wolves demonstrate the challenges of environmental adaptation. When wolf populations attempt to colonize new territories with different climates, mortality rates spike dramatically. Temperature extremes, unfamiliar prey species, and altered vegetation patterns create barriers that most wolf populations cannot overcome. Dire wolves faced no such limitations. Their robust build and powerful jaws provided the foundation for this ecological flexibility. A bite force rating of 163 newtons per kilogram of body weight exceeded any known canis species, giving them access to prey that other carnivores couldn't handle. This crushing power allowed them to exploit different food webs across continents without requiring specialized hunting techniques. Isotopic analysis of bone collagen reveals how dire wolves successfully switched between completely different food sources. Northern populations consumed primarily large ungulates like bison and camels, while southern populations targeted ground sloths and other xenarthrans. Cave deposits from Arkansas show dire wolves specializing in flat-headed peccaries, demonstrating remarkable dietary flexibility. Dire wolves achieved ecological dominance across the Americas through unmatched adaptability combined with raw physical power. Their specialized dentition featured posterior cusplets and enhanced grinding surfaces that processed bone and tough plant material equally well. This versatility allowed them to thrive wherever large prey existed, regardless of climate or elevation. Yet this very success masked a fatal weakness that would emerge when their world began to collapse. For millions of years, they were the undisputed kings of two continents, out-muscling and out-surviving every competitor in their path. Yet, in a geological blink of an eye, this invincible dynasty evaporated entirely, leaving their weaker, smaller cousins to inherit the earth. How did the ultimate survivors become evolution's greatest tragedy in just a few thousand years? Despite millions of years of dominance across two continents, dire wolves vanished completely around 13,000 years ago, while their competitors not only survived, but thrived. The answer lies in a cruel evolutionary paradox where their greatest strengths became fatal weaknesses when the world changed faster than biology could respond. The end of the last glacial period triggered rapid environmental shifts that reshaped entire ecosystems within centuries rather than millennia. As glaciers retreated, habitats transformed dramatically, and the large herbivores that dire wolves specialized in hunting either went extinct or suffered catastrophic population crashes. Horses, bison, camels, and giant ground sloths disappeared from vast regions, depriving dire wolves of their primary food sources. The megafauna that had sustained their lineage for millions of years simply ceased to exist. Their genetic isolation, once a source of unique evolutionary strength, became an evolutionary death sentence when rapid environmental change demanded immediate adaptability. Grey wolves and coyotes survived this ecological catastrophe by accessing adaptive genes through interbreeding, sharing beneficial mutations that help them exploit new prey species and altered environments. Dire wolves remain trapped within their ancient genetic prison, unable to access the flexible responses that saved their relatives. The rapid growth strategy that had previously ensured survival backfired catastrophically when prey became scarce and energy conservation became critical for survival. Young dire wolves still required massive caloric intake during their accelerated development, but the megafauna that had provided abundant protein no longer existed in sufficient numbers. The biological imperative to grow quickly created metabolic demands that post-glacial ecosystems could no longer support. Their extreme specialization for bone crushing became completely useless in a world increasingly dominated by smaller, faster prey species. Dire wolves possessed jaw structures and dentition specifically evolved for processing massive carcasses and crushing thick bones. When ecosystems shifted towards smaller mammals like deer, rabbits, and rodents, these adaptations became evolutionary baggage. Modern grey wolves succeeded by switching to these alternative prey sources, while dire wolves lacked the anatomical flexibility to make such dietary transitions. Final dire wolf populations struggled desperately in a post-megafauna world they were never equipped to handle. Fossil evidence from the terminal Pleistocene shows dire wolves with signs of malnutrition and increased competition stress. Their robust frames, once perfectly suited for hunting massive prey, became energy-expensive liabilities in resource-poor environments where smaller, more efficient predators held decisive advantages. The extinction pattern reveals the survival strategies that saved other large carnivores through the same environmental upheaval. Bears survived through omnivory and hibernation capabilities. Cougars adapted by targeting medium-sized prey across diverse habitats. Grey wolves succeeded through genetic flexibility and behavioral adaptability. Dire wolves possessed none of these survival mechanisms. The dire wolf's greatest evolutionary achievements became the very traits that doomed them when environments shifted beyond their biological flexibility. Millions of years of successful isolation had created remarkable adaptations while simultaneously ensuring their eventual destruction when the world demanded rapid change. The dire wolf's extinction teaches us that evolutionary success and survival are two very different things. Isolation can create incredible adaptations while simultaneously ensuring eventual doom. Their legacy challenges us to consider whether modern species facing rapid environmental change might be repeating the same tragic pattern of specialization without flexibility. Understanding their fate helps us recognize that in a rapidly changing world, genetic diversity and adaptability matter more than raw power or perfect specialization. The dire wolf story reveals how even the most successful predators can become prisoners of their own evolutionary achievements when the world shifts beneath their feet.